Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today, and we really appreciate having you with us. So we can start off by just having you do a really quick introduction of yourself. So if you don't mind, can you please briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path and what led you to the role that you are in today?
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's really exciting to really talk to folks that are currently at Georgetown. So a little bit about myself. I am currently a senior financial analyst at Amazon, specifically in AWS. So a little bit about a career path. I was a trained scientist, so I was a chemistry and biochem major with the anticipation that I wanted to do like in-house pharmaceutical consulting. So after graduating from my undergrad program, I went on to University of Pittsburgh to try to pursue my PhD. And I think throughout the career, I realized that doing like hardcore science is not really something that I wanted to do, but I still wanted to do like consulting. So I then pivot my experience and go into MBA at Georgetown. During my first year MBA summer, I interned with Ernst& Young within their supply chain and operation consulting division. And I realized that consulting is really not the career that I wanted. I want to be able to own like a strategy from the ideation stage all the way to the actual execution, not just like focusing on specific aspects. So want to see the end to end of the project. So then upon graduation, I got an opportunity with AWS specifically on kind of like an internal strategy role, because what I really focus on is the like a data center expansion for AWS. So that's kind of how it led me to where I'm at right now. And it happened that my chemistry background was helpful because I did a lot of modeling, and a lot of times that in my role I have to do like a long-term forecast. So just kind of like everything came in full circle.
Thank you so much. That's such an interesting path that you've had to the role you are currently at. So we'd also love to know what are the most encouraging parts of your work and what do you love about it?
Sure. So a little bit more context. I'm currently working in a team called Region Finance within AWS. So what I do and what my team does is about data center expansion. So what that means is we look at like bottoms up forecasts for 15 years, a really long time horizon, and then look at geopolitical risk, also look at like some local regulation, maybe the cost of different parts that this data center need, and then work with different teams within AWS. It could be legal, it could be product managers, to understand if this is a good investment for AWS to go in. So I think what's really encouraging part about my work is really get to work with folks across different division. A lot of times when you're in a finance function, you only get to interact with finance individuals, but in this specific role, you really get to look at a problem in a holistic level. Like you're the finance owner, but you get to look at like all different aspects. And that's something that I really like doing. And also really get to work with a lot of like intelligent individuals, and people are really, really helpful, and was able to build my business partners' trust and be the trusted advisor for the financials that I present. So I think all in all, like really interesting work, really cool coworkers, as well as able to contribute in like such a big impact project. Those are the areas that I really like about it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's really nice to hear that, you get to work with so many people on your day-to-day job. And, being a woman in business, I'm just really wondering, like in what manners do you believe that like women can help support each other, helping other women in a business setting? And do you have any thoughts and advice on like mentoring as well?
Yeah, so I think one thing about like women currently in like specifically in technology is that you're working in a very fast-paced environment, and then people are just like running 100 miles at a time. So really be more inclusive and compassionate about others, and make sure that your voice is heard. Like, just because everyone is really smart, if you have something to contribute, don't be afraid to say it. It could be a really simple question that someone might have not thought about it, and then bringing that question up can actually slow everyone down, and in a good way, to really think twice about, are we really working towards the right deliverables? Is this really the right thing that we should be working at? And is this a reasonable timeline? And I think also like really focus on connection building. It's not like a one and done situation. Like, how do you create that meaningful connection with different individuals? I think that really helps women supporting each other. And last one, you mentioned about like thoughts and advice on mentoring. I would say be a mentor, also be a mentee. A lot of times, like in my position, I think I would like reach out to senior managers, directors to ask for their feedback, not just about work in itself, but more on like I would reach out to like senior directors who are female and ask that, hey, like upon your career projection, where do you think, like how do you think that you get to where you're at right now, and if there's any advice you can give. And also think about giving back to the community, right? Like help mentoring people who are at like a more junior level, provide your own experiences and how could they walk to where you are right now, and then upon these different like receiving as well as giving feedback, and try to find what is your place. And I think these all in all really is really how like women are able to support each other.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that. And I think you definitely touched on this in that response. But what do you think like the biggest challenge that women in your industry face, being the tech industry? And do you have any advice that would provide women with a way to overcome this challenge or these challenges?
Yeah, I think it might not just like in the specific industry, but I think the common thing is that women do a lot under the table, but they're too modest to take any credit. Like, women feel like they have to like do more, and whenever people are in a group setting or in like a business setting, I think women just don't take the credit that they deserve. So I think that's the biggest challenge. So the advice that I would give is be intentional about everything that you do. Be very clear on, okay, this is the result that I'm trying to drive. Be purposeful of your time. Focus on the goal that you're trying to achieve, and be mindful of the relationship that you have, no matter with your peers, your subordinate, or your superior. And also be really curious and learn about all the little things and deep dive into specific issues, even you think that might not relate it to your work, and really try to be vocal about what you're working on.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, speaking with other women in business, I think that's a really common challenge that a lot of women find as well. So thank you so much for, sharing that. And now, kind of moving more into the personal side of things, if you don't mind speaking to it, I was wondering, how do you manage balance in your work life and your personal life, seeing that, you work in tech and it's also like in a big company?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, especially given that we're like in pandemic right now. So like currently I have been working from home whole time, and it's really hard to set that boundaries between what is work and what is personal life. So I think how I have been managing it is to set up rituals and set up boundaries. Like literally, I have my laptop in the workspace, and I do not touch any of it like outside of work hour. So I think like, for example, like I will be very clear about, okay, originally I would take the bus to the office, or I would try to walk to the office. But given the pandemic, I will make a point of having the quote unquote commute time. So I would walk outside of the apartment, try to get some coffee, and then come back, then start working, instead of like, just go from that 30 seconds commute from your bedroom to the office. And I will also be very clear, setting expectations for my manager or my teammates and everyone on the team, and say that, hey, like, I am not going to respond to any messages and any emails prior to 9 a.m. And I'm very, very strict about it. I have people who reach out to me prior to like 9 a.m. And even though I could see it on my phone, but I just refuse. I refuse to respond to it unless it's something very urgent. So I think you just have to be very, very clear about what is your bottom line, and people will respect that. So I think that is like the biggest thing that I do to kind of manage the balance between work life and personal life.
Yeah, definitely setting those boundaries are important, especially during the pandemic when the line can get blurred between work and personal life. This is a question more, I think I would say from my perspective as an undergrad. What piece of advice would you give someone who's coming out of school and just about to enter the business world for maybe the first time?
I think so for the undergrads or like when they first entered a company, I think you should develop your network and start early. A lot of times, like undergraduates think that, okay, we're just entering into a business world, but when you enter the corporate world, you will soon find that there's a big gap between what you think it would look like and like what it actually looks like. So really start developing your network and start early, like maybe as early as now. And then another thing I would say is like try to learn and be curious and intentional about it. If there's something that you don't understand in like a new setting, like don't be afraid to ask, because a lot of times that's how you really learn. But before you ask, you should also like do your due diligence before you reach out to others. Like a good way of approaching that would be maybe do some research about a problem that you don't know how to solve, and go to your manager or go to your peer and say, hey, I don't really understand this. This is my understanding. What do you think? Can you help me with that? So be really open about it. So that also brings me to my next point about you should be open and be really communicative about your issue. This is your full-time entering a world. So really communicate to your stakeholders and your managers and all the individuals about what you know and what you don't know, and then really like be open and receptive to feedback. And usually you will be really successful in those roles.
Yeah, definitely. And, coming from my perspective, being in the MBA, I've also had like prior work experience. So I definitely agree, building like communication and like try to build relationships with other people around you in the firm is like really, really important. And it definitely like gets you started in the right foot. And, just to kind of finish things off, and I know you covered this a little before already, but in what manners do you believe that women can support other women in the business setting? And if you have any other closing advice or any opinions you want to provide to us, please feel free to do so.
Sure. I think a lot of times is really tap in and lean into your network, not just like from women itself. It's also like from the ally. So for example, there are a lot of, I would say, community within a company, and I believe in a lot of different companies that they have kind of like women supporting network, and really try to understand what they're doing, what is their purpose, what is their tenet, and see how you can really lean into that network and learn from them. And then another thing is that I think it's really be inclusive about everything. A lot of times, like women in like a big group setting or in a one-on-one setting, they don't really voice their concern or be vocal about the work that they do or the contribution that they make for the broader community. I think in those settings, it will be really helpful when you're more inclusive. For example, I'll say, hey, so-and-so, like, I see that you haven't really expressed much about this opinion. Do you have anything that you would like to share? And then by doing more of that and be more cognizant and make sure that everyone has an equal ground, I think that really helps women and like really support each other.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Well, Rekha, thank you so much for being here with us today and for taking time to talk about your career and experiences. You've definitely given us so many great insights and a really unique outlook regarding women in business. And I know KK and I will definitely be taking away valuable advice from you to apply in our own lives, not only once we enter the business world, but starting now as well. So once again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.